Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Got a really fun one for you today. This is one that I'm really passionate about because I'm self-taught in this area. I really didn't have anybody teaching me these principles, and I've learned to implement many of these in my life. And I've found people that have, I'm continually adding tools to my toolbox in this area, and it's finances. How about you? How about your finances? Do you want to improve your finances? Have you thought about that? Have you ever been stressed about that? Have you thought, man, I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to make decisions. What's a 401k? How do I pick what's in my brokerage account? Should I do my employee stock purchase plan? Should I invest in real estate? How do I even do that? I'm nervous about that. No one's taught me that. Should I buy a house? Should I rent? All those questions you have growing up. Should I pay cash for everything or use a credit card? Stuff like that. Um, we're going to just talk through finances for the simple minded because I'm a simple minded guy. I like simple things, and I like to break it down and just make these concepts really simple. So I'm not a financial advisor. Uh, Go consult your financial advisor, your tax professionals. This is just one guy's opinion based on stuff I've learned through the years and continue to learn and implement in my life. And I'll kind of talk about some some of these that I was already doing and some that I've just learned recently that I'm starting to implement. And yeah, we'll just jump right in. So, what is number one for me? So, number one is you must know where you're at, because if you don't know where you're at, you can't know where you want to go, and you don't know where you're at unless you know where you've been, right? So you kind of need to go backwards at the start. And this is kind of frustrating for people because they just want to jump right in and know what to do. But really, the key thing, and I won't dive into accounting. I'm still learning a bit of accounting, by the way. I got this book, How to Read a Financial Report. I'll give Marby a shout out. I've gotten a lot of good financial wisdom from some of the stuff that he posts. But How to Read a Financial Report. I'm going through this, and it talks about the three basic statements of a business, which you probably are aware of, but do you have one for your own life? Do you treat your life like a business, your family? That's really the mindset I want you to have. Think of you and your family and your finances as a business. Well, how do you know how well you are doing? Well, you don't know unless you actually track it and trend it and look at it and make goals and, all those things that businesses do. Why do they do that? Because that's the only way they're going to get better and move forward. So you got to have a balance sheet. What do I mean by balance sheet? I mean, you got to know, and this is just a snapshot picture of your net worth, assets minus liabilities, right? What's an asset? Anything that pays me or preserves my wealth. What's a liability? Anything that's going to take away my wealth or, an outstanding payment I need to make in the future, right? Again, these are just Phil's dummy definitions. So you got to have a balance sheet. You got to know your assets minus your liabilities. And this just gives you a picture of like, okay, if I died today, what is going to go to my next generation? The Bible says leave a legacy to your children's children. Ooh, are we thinking like that? Are we trying to do that? And that's not just financial, but I think finances is a piece, and we're supposed to steward what God gives us. So, obviously the legacy is a Christian heritage. It's much more than financial, but you've got to be wise and a good steward of what you're given. So again, net worth. If I died today, what goes to my family? Most people don't think about tax liability. We'll get into that. But so balance sheet, assets, liabilities, net worth. Do you know yours? If not, pause this, go figure out your net worth, figure out all the assets you own, figure out all the liabilities you have, credit card debt, loans, any mortgages, all that stuff. Then you need your income statement. So that's one piece. You got your net worth, then you got your income statement, which is essentially almost like your cash flows, not quite, but it's your income minus expenses. So, how much is coming in every month and how much is going out? Are you positive or negative? Right? Do you have more income coming in than you're spending? Right? Where are you allocating money to savings, that sort of thing? So you got to know that, and then you got to have your cash flow statement as well. And it's really important to understand, how much cash flow you have coming in, income, right? You have coming in every month, and is it active or passive. And really good, if you study any of Robert Kiyosaki's stuff, he's got some really good books that break down the cash flow quadrants. You may have heard of Rich Dad Poor Dad. He's famous for that. But the cash flow quadrants is kind of Robert's claim to fame. And it's just really good mindset to understand, like, okay, where am I making my money? Am I an employee? Am I a small business owner? Am I trading time for money? Am I trading more time for more money as a small business owner, maybe? Or can I, or how do and does one jump to the big business investor side in a way where they can be successful, right? Start creating leverage, right? So that's an important word. How do you create leverage? How will you be taxed in those different quadrants, right? So go read that. I won't dive into it here. This is kind of just a high level conceptual overview. And at some point we might deep dive into these. You know, what really inspired me to do this podcast this morning is I've gotten so much good feedback on my financial content, which just makes me go, okay, maybe there's a need. And it's funny that, you know, I almost am putting out financial content because I've never considered myself a financial wizard. I almost have considered myself my whole life an ignoramus in the area. But as I've grown and gotten older and learned, I'm starting to realize that I wasn't the only one. You know, very few people really understand finances and business. And so I'm a student, and so I'm sharing as I'm learning with you. So the next important thing, once you've got your cash flow, you got your income statement, you got your balance sheet, you know where you are, right? And then the question is, where do you want to go and when? And that's, you know, goal setting. And I'd encourage you to set goals in all areas. And it's important not to just set goals in one and ignore another. Like one would be, oh, I'm going to set a net worth goal. Oh, that's cool. So like you might have a big net worth, but you don't have any cash flow to actually pay your bills, and you don't have any, mechanism from that cash flow to actually continue to save and invest. And then you also may not be paying attention to taxes. So when you die, your family's going to get screwed because of taxes. So you got to understand your net worth goals, your cash flow goals, your savings goals, your pre-tax, post-tax, tax deferred, death tax goals. Like how do I avoid taxes throughout this process? You got to understand that stuff. And there's a lot to that. There's good books for that. Yeah, that's just really important stuff. If you want to DM me, I can give you some resources there. But set goals with regards to net worth, cash flow, savings, and taxes. There's probably other areas you want to too, but those are kind of my big ones. And then, I'm going to jump right into some just basic overall rules, which kind of, include what I've just shared with you. But to me, those two are kind of the big breakdowns. Then we could talk about, how to achieve those goals. And that's kind of what I'm going to get into in these rules that I got from Uncle G, Grant Cardone. Mixed reviews on Grant. I like a lot of his stuff. I don't agree with some of the things he says, but that doesn't mean I can't learn from him. Clearly, he has some success in certain areas of life. So, I'd encourage you, if you have goals and you have things you want to achieve, look for people that actually have success in those areas, like finances, for example, and listen to those people about certain things. You don't have to listen to everything, but, it's pretty wise to listen to people that actually have what you want, because clearly they're doing something right. If you keep listening to people that don't have what you want, like maybe family members, like maybe friends that you hang out with, right? Who are going to criticize, oh, no, that's stupid. I heard on Dave Ramsey. What are they doing? What do they have? That's what's going to be your best indicator of where you're going to go and how good their advice is. So here's the rules. I'll walk through. I'll highlight the ones that I'm already been doing, and then highlight the ones I'm working on right now and implementing right now, and some that I'm not going to implement because I just don't fundamentally agree. I get the concept maybe, but yeah, so we'll jump in there. So one is never spend more than you earn. I've always lived by this. I've always been frugal. I started out just paying cash for everything back in my college days. That was kind of my mentality. I didn't have a credit card till I was 25. So stupid. So stupid. So start building your credit. Don't spend more than you earn. Always pay off your credit cards. That's another rule. We'll get to that one. But yeah, don't spend more than you have. Pretty simple. Don't count it till you have it is the next one. Don't count it till you have it. So if it's not in the door already, just pretend it doesn't even exist. You don't have it. keep you having a sense of urgency, keep you out of a bad spot when something might go wrong. So don't count it till you have it. Those are two I've always done, and always been pretty good at living life by. If you can't write it off, don't buy it. Ooh, that's one that wasn't on my list, but has recently become on my list. If you can't write it off, don't buy it. There's so many ways to start a business and start living your life as a business, and do things that are business activities that can reduce your tax burden overall through real estate, through business, through owning assets for businesses. So if you can't write it off, don't buy it. If you don't understand, most people don't get what a write-off is. I'll just share it with you, and you probably know, but a write-off isn't, you don't have to pay for it. Most people think that's what it is. No, it's you pay for it, but you essentially get the discount of taxes, right? So say I buy something for $100. If it's a business expense, then that $100 is going to be a reduction of $100 in my taxable income. And so now that $100 isn't taxable. Does that make sense? So it's basically like if your tax burden marginal is 20%, you're basically getting a 20% discount on that $100 you spent. Plus, it's an investment into your business, right? So pretty cool. Definitely a good thing to avoid taxes is to start writing things off as business expenses legally. Consult your CPA. I'm not encouraging any illegal activities. Do things by the book. There's lots of loopholes which smart, wealthy people use. So they're loopholes there for a purpose, and they're there for you to use. So go learn them and use them. Know your cost of living. This is one I just kind of went over above and getting the picture, but your cost of living, your income statement. What's my income? What's my expenses? Am I making more than I'm earning, or making more than I'm spending in my financial picture? So know your cost of living, what's coming in, what's going out, all that stuff. Never loan money to anyone. Ooh, this was a tough one. I don't know if I've ever loaned people money, like charging them interest. I think the Bible talks about that too, but I'm a big fan of the mindset that I heard that is, give people gifts, don't loan them money. And if someone like a family member comes to you and needs some money, you can help them out, but just let them know, like, I'm only going to help you out this one time, and it's a gift. You don't have to pay me back, but I'm not going to, don't keep coming to me for money, because I'm not going to help you just continually. Because otherwise, you get in this trap of broke people that make bad money decisions, and they'll just bring you down with them. And that's another rule that we'll get to here in a minute. But never loan money to anyone. Kind of an interesting concept. But you can be generous with your God-given gifts, and God loves a cheerful giver. Only invest in assets that cash flow. That's a huge one, because you hear people talk about gold and silver. Do gold and silver cash flow? No, they don't. People say, "Oh, Phil, the market's going to crash, the dollar's going to crash, gold and silver are going to go to the moon." Well, gold and silver don't ever go to the moon. Why? Because an ounce of gold is 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 an ounce of gold. It's always going to be an ounce of gold. It never gets more valuable or less valuable. You could argue that based on certain market supply demand dynamics, but for the most part, an ounce of gold is a rock this big. It weighs an ounce, and it's never going to change. It buys the same thing today that it did 100 years ago. The thing that changes is the value of the currencies around it, right? That's the importance of a gold-backed currency or an asset-backed currency versus the US dollar, which is an absolute joke, because they can just print however much they want and inflate the heck out of it. So it's what we're going through now. The dollar's dead, by the way, if you didn't know. So I don't know what you're doing to prepare for that. I think buying gold and silver to preserve wealth is a good idea, but an even better idea, I think, is to invest that money in assets, actual assets that cash flow, right? That are going to make me more money and also appreciate, right? Gold and silver doesn't appreciate. Real estate appreciates, and I get tax benefits because I can depreciate, right? So it's just, that's kind of a mindset you'll hear from guys like Robert Kiyosaki: buy gold and silver, buy crypto. Crypto doesn't go to the moon, dog. I'm not a crypto expert, but like, currency is currency is currency, and value is value is value. And you can't just artificially create value out of thin air with something that's not an actual asset. And you're going to argue with me, you crypto people, and say crypto is one, but no, it's just another currency where you have a ledger thing, and yeah, you limit the supply, so it artificially inflates the value because the supply is limited. Why? Because you create demand for it artificially out of thin air. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with gold, but there's nothing physical there, right? Like maybe you crypto people can educate me on this, but I don't get it. I stay away from crypto. Some people say to get into it if you want to. If you made $1 million, good for you. I just don't. I don't buy it. Never gamble with money. This is one I've definitely broken. You ever go to Vegas, play a little blackjack, put 100 on black, maybe a little more? Don't gamble with money. Yeah. This also includes when investing. You know, the stock market, some of these places you can throw your money. It's really a gamble. No one knows what it's going to be. So, you know, one interesting strategy is if you look into life insurance, some of the wealthiest people on earth leverage life insurance, really good tax avoidance to the next generation as well. Most people miss that. Whole life insurance money goes, and all life insurance money goes tax free to the next generation. So if you're not educated on life insurance, check out a book, Confessions of a CPA: The Truth About Life Insurance. Really good book. And yeah, I leverage life insurance. I use it as a savings vehicle. Okay. So instead of like a checking account to save your money, I save my money in life insurance. And then I can leverage that throughout my life while it's nonstop compounding. Not going to dive into that in detail today, but just really, really important to understand that you shouldn't gamble with your money. So if you can find a sure thing as sure a thing as you can find, do that and don't gamble with your money. Limit discretionary spending to passive income. Ooh, this is another good one that, you know, I really think I'm just starting to implement in my life because I'm just starting to create passive income over the last several years. But, you know, you basically don't buy dumb stuff unless you're buying it with money you earned while you didn't have to, you know, trade your time, right? It's not employee income. It's passive asset generated income. I think this is great, especially on the come up as you're building to the point where you've got assets that fund your life and fund your retirement. Retirement, I don't like that word. Fund your life, right? You know, as you're coming up and doing these things, starting to do that will just compound. And then you'll continue to be able to not only invest that passive income in more passive income, but also in more and more fun stuff. Pay off credit cards every month. So I encourage you to use a credit card. If they're going to give you money for free, like, yeah, don't spend it on stuff you can't afford, right? Never, like, don't forget all these rules we just talked about. But a credit card's free money. You pay it off every month. You treat it like your checking account, and you get points and you get free stuff. Why wouldn't you do that? So go do that. Build your credit. You can leverage credit. I've got hundreds of thousands in credit. It's sweet. And there's all sorts of zero interest opportunities to leverage money as well. So, you know, like, especially with inflation right now, if I can get money at 0%, I'm actually saving money. If I'm spending 0% money where I can use this money elsewhere and still be able to pay off this money, like, I'm saving money. And if you don't understand that, DM me. We can schedule time and break that down. But it's really important to start using credit cards. Use them wisely. Don't spend more than you earn with them, but they're great assets. Plus, it also limits your liability, right? If you get frauded on a credit card versus your checking account, like the bank is liable for the credit card. You're liable for your checking, right? So it's a safety thing too. Plus, it's a tracking thing. Like for business expenses, you just bang a credit card, you know, swipe, swipe, swipe. Now it's tap, 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 or whatever it is. Insert. I hate to, like, I miss the swipe. I like the credit card swipe, but whatever. Tap's kind of cool too. Tap, tap. Use credit cards. Rent, don't own. This is one from Grant that, oh man, I just cringe. I hate this one. I don't use this one. He says that renting's more expensive. I haven't like deep dive crunched the numbers on this one. I have a feel for numbers really well in my head, but for the same money, you just cannot live as well renting versus owning, period. And he'll argue with me on this because of expenses, blah, blah, blah. But once you factor in inflation, once you factor in appreciation, once you factor in, you know, the type of place, the neighborhood, the type of environment, it's way better value to buy, in my opinion. Now, if you want to make an argument that buying and owning and all those headaches that come along with owning, and oh, you're going to want to fix up your property and waste all this money, and where you could be doing other stuff. If that's part of your goals, like, I understand renting to eliminate distractions, but from a just straight value perspective, if you buy the right house, it is way more actual money value than renting. And I I just don't get that one. So I would encourage you to buy a home. You can live better sooner. You can, and again, maybe you want to delay gratification, and that'll help you get to your goals faster. It depends on your goals. So, I'll caveat what I'm saying here. I get what Grant's saying. I also choose, for me, I have a wife and a kid, and I want them in a nice place. And, maybe there's a way to do that where you could buy a multifamily and rent from yourself and live in one of the units. And that can maybe follow this rent, don't own rule, and also invest in assets rule. And if you can't buy it off, rent it off, don't buy it rule. You start kind of multiplying some of these rules, compounding. But yeah, I would buy a house. Don't rent if you can afford a house. Why would, like, I just don't get it, especially since your mortgage is lower and part of that mortgage is going to principal, which you're going to get later. Plus the property is appreciating. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I think if I crunch the numbers, it'll be way more cost effective to own, depending on the house, depending on what we're talking about. But like for like property, like rent the house I live in now versus buy it, I think it'd be way more cost effective to own. Stop collecting stuff. Start collecting assets. This is one I've been doing for a while, but just stop buying stupid stuff. And, like, for example, if you want to buy a really nice car, there's ways to rent out cars now and turn them into cash flowing assets. So, like, maybe you have a junker car you can use as a backup, but you want a really nice one. Well, go buy the really nice one, do some research, make sure you can cash flow it, renting it a few days a month. And you just start a little business. You can write off the whole value of that car for your business, right? You can write off all the business expenses related to that car. And you also get a nice car that eventually is paid for. And, that's just like kind of the mentality of start collecting assets that you can leverage, right? This next one I really, really like. Don't give your kids allowances, teach them to invest their time and money. So most people just throw some money at their children, or they'll save money for them over here. One really good strategy is you can actually pay your kids up to certain amounts tax free. Gives you a tax break, right? As long as they're working for your business legitimately, which you can document and make sure that's legit. But you pay that money to your kids via a contract, and then you invest it for them in some sort of investment that cash flows, right? And then you let your kids spend money off the cash flow from those assets, right? So they're creating something that cash flows. The cash flow isn't going to go away if they spend it. It's always going to come in next month, right? And so you're basically teaching your kids how to build a legacy for their children someday, and teaching them that good mindset, giving you a tax break at the same time. And, like, for example, some people make too much money to invest in something like a Roth IRA. So what they could do is they could actually pay their children, and then their children don't make enough money to not be able to invest in Roth. So they could open Roths for their kids and invest in a Roth via their kids, right? Like, there's ways to get really creative with this tax wise and investment wise. So yeah, think about this one. This is huge. Never mix business and personal accounts. This is something I've never done. Never do it. Keep them separate. Always have a separate dedicated card for business expenses, checking account, etc. Keep separate accounts from your spouse. That's another big one. My wife and I have always done this one. And it's not because we don't know and have access to those accounts. It's just we choose to track it all separate. So what people are making, what people are spending. Yeah, you can get joint accounts, whatever, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, if you trust each other, you just let each other access your accounts, or whatever, give them access to your account, and it's no big deal. But yeah, this one's just good because, it helps you track who's got good money habits, who has bad, gives you indications of, who needs to improve. And it's just cleaner. It's just cleaner. If they aren't willing to discuss their finances, run. I like this one a lot. It's if you think about it, people that are afraid to talk about money, I grew up with this mentality. Oh, it's rude to talk about money. Oh, it's rude to ask people how much money they make. Well, what I found is the people that don't like talking about money don't have any money. They're typically broke. And when I say broke, they're probably doing fine, but they're typically not wealthy, because wealthy people know money, talk about money. They've learned about money. They're comfortable with money. They, like, money's just a tool, and they don't get offended about it. And they aren't like looking down on people because they make less money than them. It's just money. So if you are around people that aren't willing to discuss their finances and discuss their money, or are like still weird about like, oh no, don't share our personal information with people. Like, who gives a rip? Nobody cares. So yeah, if they aren't willing to discuss their finances, they probably have something to hide. They're probably embarrassed about something. They probably don't have great finances. So run. And lastly, this is one that's tough. It's the hard truth. But if you're around sick people, you're gonna get sick. If you're around a bunch of pagans, you're gonna start doing pagan stuff, probably like Lot and his wife in Sodom and Gomorrah, right? If you're around a bunch of fine, upstanding Christian people, you'll probably become a fine, upstanding Christian. And if you're around a bunch of people with money problems, you'll probably have them too. You'll probably catch them, be just like them. So avoid people with money problems. Avoid them like the plague. Seriously, this is a tough one. I know. I like helping people, but sometimes people. I learned this from one of my mentors, Greg Francis. You can only learn at the level you appreciate, and he probably learned it from somebody else. By the way, we all just steal stuff from everybody. Like I don't think I've ever had an original thought, maybe one in my entire life. But yeah, you only learn at the level you appreciate. So it's kind of a cast your pearls before swine Bible verse scenario, right? Like help people with money problems to a degree, but if they're not going to listen to your advice and start implementing it in their life, just avoid them. Get away. Stay away from people with money problems. They will suck you in, and their problems will become your problems. So I hope this helped y'all. This is some basic money mindset that has really helped me, is helping me continue to advance, continue to reduce my taxes, continue to make more and more money, and set my family up for the future. So follow, subscribe, share this out with somebody who needs to hear it. I'll probably do more financial content because I've gotten a lot of really good feedback on financial content. So maybe we'll take some of these topics and like do a deep dive study of them at one point. But I hope this helped y'all get your finances in order. Be good stewards of your time and money. DM me or reach out if you want more detail on any of these. And as you go, lead everything.